Okay, well, it is 3 o'clock and I want to be mindful of everyone's time and maybe I'm between dinner, I don't know. So there's a lot to cover as well. So I just want to make sure we have time to cover everything and of course, answer all of your questions. Everyone is here for the U.S. Department of State session? Yes, okay, excellent. So as a starting point, what is the U.S. Department of State? So we can start there. Has anyone heard of the U.S. Department of State? Okay, what have you heard? I don't know, I saw your hand, so I'll ask you.
I guess they deal with all the, I would guess national security. Am I wrong?
Some national security issues as well. Would you like a pen? Anyone else want to say another aspect of what we work on for the chance at a pen? National security is part of it, but what else? Yes.
Like international relations.
Yes. So the U.S. Department of State is one of the federal government agencies. Of course, there are many: Department of Defense, Department of Education, et cetera. So we're a federal government agency. Our agency's mission is to advance U.S. foreign policy overseas. So we are in the business of international affairs, diplomacy, protecting national security, all of these things, advancing America and Americans' interests overseas. Like all federal government agencies, we are headquartered in Washington, D.C. And then, of course, we have all of our embassies and consulates overseas. We do have some other domestic facilities outside of Washington, D.C., like the passport agencies, like the Tucson one, a bit down the way. That would be a State Department facility. So we have some outside D.C., but in terms of where we're located primarily, and therefore where the jobs are primarily, it's going to be in Washington, D.C. at our headquarters, and then at our embassies and consulates overseas. Now, before I talk a little bit about who I am and why I'm standing in front of you today, I do want to get a feel for the room too, to make sure that I can kind of best tailor this presentation to cover the things that are going to be of interest to you. So if you could let me know, let's start with what you're studying and what year in school you are. I think we have enough time to get through folks with that. So what you're studying and what year in school.
I'm a junior and I'm studying political science.
Okay.
I'm an MBA student and it's my first year grad school.
Okay.
I'm a freshman, I'm doing management and then getting a cert in international business.
Okay. So in Cary.
Yes.
I'm a freshman, I'm doing marketing.
Oh, that's what I do. Love it. Also in Cary?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm a freshman, I'm studying Japanese.
Okay.
I'm a first year, I'm majoring in public policy service.
Great.
I'm a freshman and I'm majoring in political science.
I love all the freshmen, by the way. It is so good to start going to all the things and see what's out there and see what you're going to be interested in. So I'm sorry, you said freshman and what was the major?
Political science.
Poli-sci, okay.
I'm a senior and I'm studying supply chain management.
Okay. Also been in Cary?
Yes.
I'm a senior as well and I'm studying psychology.
I'm a freshman and I'm studying business, so Cary.
Cary as well. Okay, great. Let's go back.
I'm a first year, I'm studying marketing.
I'm a senior, I'm studying mass communications and media studies.
I am a senior as well. I'm studying business communications, but I'm going to get my MBA in supply chain. So
Okay.
I'm a freshman studying poli-sci as well.
I'm a freshman studying psychology.
I'm a senior studying political science and global studies.
Okay, great. So a lot of different majors represented across the room. It definitely helps me get a sense of which careers I'm going to focus on the most. But I'll ask maybe 3 more short questions. First is going to be, are you here primarily to learn about careers? Second is, are you here primarily to learn about internships? Third question is, are you here to learn about both? So how many people primarily want to learn about careers? Okay, primarily internships? Okay, and then both. Okay, we're going to cover both. So we'll get into that. Okay, fantastic. So again, who am I and why am I here in front of you? So my name is Antoinette Hurtado. I'm what's called a Foreign Service Officer. It's one of the many diplomatic careers you can have with the U.S. Department of State. I just had my 20-year anniversary as a diplomat this September, so I've been doing this for 2 decades now. I've served a little bit of everywhere. Overseas, I've served in Australia, Brazil, Afghanistan, Italy. I've done some assignments at our headquarters in Washington, D.C. as well. And then now I'm doing this assignment as what's called a diplomat in residence. What is that? Basically, there are 17 of us diplomats in residence nationwide. We all cover different regions and we're all experienced diplomats like myself. And in this role, our job is to essentially serve as the regional recruiter. So to get the word out about U.S. Department of State opportunities, help people see what could be the best fit for them, both in our careers and in our student programs, and hopefully get folks to apply. So my region is the Southwest. I'm based in Las Vegas, Nevada, and I do recruitment for Nevada, Arizona, and New Mexico. So I've got a big 3 states to cover. I'm on the road a lot, trying to get the word out, and happy to be in Phoenix here this week. A couple of things I want to point out here. I always forget to mention it till later, so I'm reminding myself to mention it now. In the bottom right-hand corner, 2 things. The majority of what I'm going to talk about, especially the careers, the internships, and the fellowships, can all also be found on careers.state.gov. We are a federal government agency, so probably not a surprise that US citizenship is also required for all the things I'm going to talk about today. And if you do want to reach out to me later with any questions, my email is here, dirsouthwest@state.gov. Do feel free to take pictures of any of the slides. I'm not going to be able to share them later because they're on a different platform. And of course, most things can be found on careers.state.gov, but I've curated things to be a little bit easier to kind of process and digest with the slides, especially when we get to the internships. Each slide is going to say what the program is, what the eligibility is, what the timeline is to apply. So it's kind of all nice and on one page for you. So feel free to take photos of any of these. So that is a little bit about me. We are looking for folks from all academic backgrounds and all professional backgrounds. You'll see why in just a moment. So we're hiring engineers, we're hiring IT folks, we're hiring law enforcement folks. Certainly we have a number of management, administration, and business careers, and lots of other things. So whatever your major is, I always tell students 99.9% of the time, we have a career that's related to what you're doing. Now, why the US Department of State? A lot of reasons, potentially. It's personal for everyone. But I would say the 2 biggest reasons that interested me in the US Department of State and that have kept me in for 20 years, and probably also the 2 biggest reasons for a lot of my colleagues, are the following. So when I started my college journey, I didn't really know what the US Department of State did. I certainly didn't really know what a diplomat did, but I knew 2 things going into college. The first was, I want to try to do good in the world. I want my life on this planet to matter. I want my time at work to matter. Once you get out there in the real world, you spend a lot of time at work, and I want it to be worth it. I want it to be doing something that is helping people. So for me, it was never enough to get a job that was where the paycheck was the only motivating factor. Like, yes, we have bills and I would like a paycheck, but I would also like my job to be helping me to do good in the world. So I was always looking for a job that was going to give me that extra sense of reward and sense of fulfillment and satisfaction. And then the other thing that I knew going into college was I would love to see the world. I, didn't get a chance to really do that growing up. We didn't do any international travel. So all I really saw was, movies, TV shows, history books, things like that. But I really wanted to experience the world for myself. So in the back of my mind was, how can I do good in the world? And then how can I get paid to see the world as well? Is there anyone who can finance this adventure for me? So those were 2 things that definitely attracted me to the US Department of State, and again, have kept me in for 20 years. But there could be any number of reasons. The benefits are really good. I can talk about that a little bit later. If you're changing assignments every couple of years, I was always someone who used to get bored easily. So for me, doing the exact same thing every day at work for 20, 30, 40 years was never going to be something that I could deal with. I don't have the attention to do that. So I love that every couple of years as a diplomat, I'm changing assignments. I'm going to a new country or back to DC or here, in the Southwest to Las Vegas. I'm doing basically something totally different every 2 to 3 years. So that was really attractive to me. I want to continue to build my skills, continue to evolve, continue to grow. And there's also a lot of emphasis on professional development and training. So if people have heard of the US Department of State, sometimes there are a couple of myths. Maybe one that you have to be poli-sci or you have to be studying international affairs. Not true at all. We're taking all majors, and you'll see why again when I start to talk about the careers. Another myth might be, well, don't I already have to speak a foreign language? How many people in the room actually do already speak a foreign language? Okay, fantastic. Let me go ahead and ask which languages, because that's going to feature for one of the careers.
Spanish
Okay,
natively, and I'm taking French here.
okay. For others who raise their hand with a language,
I'm gonna have to speak Spanish, but I'm basically good with French as well.
okay.
Spanish as well.
Spanish, and then-
I speak Hindi.
Okay. Yes,
I speak Ukrainian.
okay. Anyone else over here?
I
Yes,
speak Polish.
okay.
Spanish, but hopefully I can learn Mandarin.
Great.
Spanish and Italian.
Okay.
French.
Portuguese.
Oh, Portuguese. Okay, fantastic. Follow Portuguese. That was my second assignment, was Brazil, and I loved it. So if you, what was I saying? Oh, yes, so a misperception may be that you have to speak a foreign language already to join us, and that's not the case. If you do, that's fantastic, and we very well may take advantage of that. But I came into the State Department with Spanish. I've never served in a Spanish-speaking country. Instead, the State Department taught me Portuguese before I went to Brazil, and they taught me Italian before I went to Italy. So we will pay to teach you all the things in terms of what your career is, professional skills, but we will also pay you to sit in a classroom and learn all these foreign languages if it's required for where you're going. So lots of different reasons, in short, why one might be interested in the US Department of State, the lifestyle, the benefits, doing good in the world, getting paid to travel, all these things. But of course, varies on the individual. So we're gonna start today's session with an overview of the career opportunities, and then I'm gonna spend probably fully half the session on our student programs because there's so much to cover there. Our student programs, there are 3 buckets, basically: internships, fellowships, and study abroad scholarships. And we saw some hands already that are interested in internships. How many people have done a study abroad already? Okay, how many people want to do one in the future? Okay, so we will spend some time on the study abroad scholarships then. All right, but let's start with careers. So in the US Department of State, there are basically 2 main workforces. We'll have the Foreign Service and the Civil Service. The Foreign Service it's our term for the diplomatic corps. The Foreign Service are going to be all the diplomats like myself who are assigned to the embassies and consulates around the world. In the Foreign Service, depending on exactly which Foreign Service career you have, the expectation is you're spending about half of your career overseas. Could be a little bit less depending on the career, could be a little bit more depending on the career. But basically about half your career will be overseas. We also have the Civil Service. This is our domestic workforce. Our headquarters in Washington, D.C. is where most of these positions will be because headquarters has the most positions. But then they'll also be at those passport agencies that I was saying are across the country and a couple of other facilities that we have. And we also have an overseas job called the Consular Fellows Program. I'll get into that more in a second. Let's go back to the Foreign Service. So in the Foreign Service, you're spending about half your career overseas. You are a diplomat assigned to embassies and consulates. To join the Foreign Service, you can take 2 paths. You can be a generalist diplomat or you can specialize. So the first path is to become a Foreign Service officer. That's the generalist diplomatic career. That's what I do. So as a generalist, you can come from any academic background, doesn't matter, you take them all. And you're gonna work on a lot of issues. So I've worked on counterterrorism issues, human rights issues, Russia-Ukraine issues, environmental issues, so many different things over my career. And even though you are a generalist and you will touch on a lot of different things, we do ask you to choose when you join one of those 5 areas to focus your career on. And I also have a handout on the Foreign Service Officer and Foreign Service Specialist careers up here later if you want to reference that. So what do these 5 career tracks, as we call them, do? So let's start on the right with public diplomacy. That's what I do, which is basically marketing, communications, advertising, but our product is American foreign policy and America. So it's essentially everything public facing that we do as diplomats to engage foreign audiences to tell the story of America, certainly to talk about our foreign policy, but also there's a lot of cultural diplomacy that we do too. Management is sort of like our MBA career, but you don't necessarily need an MBA to do it. It's a broad management career with us, making sure that everything that we have and do functions so that we can get about the business of foreign policy. Now, our management track officers will typically focus on 3 main aspects of management. The first is operations and logistics management. The second is financial management, so the budget, accounting, finance piece. And the third is human resources. So it's a broad management experience where you can touch on all of the 3. You can especially focus on maybe 2 out of the 3 or 1 out of the 3, but you're going to have the opportunity to work on all 3 management issues across your career. So then we have econ and political. This is probably what people tend to think of when they think about a diplomat, whether from like the Netflix show, The Diplomat, or movies or other things. It's, the diplomats who are going into the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of a government and having a conversation with government officials about arms control issues, Russia-Ukraine issues, Gaza issues, whatever. And so they are those officers who are having those conversations on the full range of economic and political issues. Econ, in addition to covering economic international issues, econ officers also have a portfolio that we call ESTH, which stands for Environment, Science, Technology, and Health. So if any of those issues also resonate with you, that's what our econ officers will also cover. And then political is essentially everything that's not econ, so, which is so many things: arms control, human rights issues, democracy issues, rule of law issues, so many things. And then we have a consular. consular work is twofold. Half of consular work is interviewing foreign nationals who need a visa to come to the United States, tourism visa, student visa, work visa, whatever, applying US immigration law and deciding if they're eligible. The other half of consular work is helping American citizens overseas. This is as important as our foreign policy mission, and it's in fact one of the reasons that we even have embassies and consulates overseas. So what does that assistance look like? It could be anything from routine as let's say there are some Americans living overseas and they need to renew their passport. They'll come in and see us, or they need a US notary for some reason. Maybe they're selling property, doing a will, whatever. Or it could be more serious than that. It could be an American gets robbed overseas. An American gets arrested overseas. Don't do that. By the way, it's a very difficult situation. We've seen some high profile cases of that in the media lately. But if you do find yourself in that situation, we will be there for you to make sure you have access to legal counsel and are treated humanely. Or it could be something even bigger, like evacuating Americans. Sometimes we have to do that for either natural disasters or civil unrest or war. So we're evacuating Americans out of Lebanon right now. So unfortunately, there could be any number of situations where we would provide assistance to Americans who are going through those situations. So that's the Foreign Service Officer career, again, a generalist career, but you do choose one of those 5. Also feel free to ask questions as we go along. You don't have to wait till the end. So that's a generalist career. Now, you heard me just talk about consular work, but we also see that consular work is here under Consular Fellows Program. And since we have some people in the room who speak one of those 4 languages, let me say a couple words about that. So the Consular Fellows Program is neither a fellowship nor a program. I don't know why it's called that. It's an overseas job. And it's the only reason we call it a non-career appointment is because you can only do it for a maximum of 5 years. Oftentimes you can extend to a 6th or a 7th year, but basically it's 5 years, which would be 2 assignments. So 2 different countries you would go to. So the Consular Fellows Program, let me say a word about eligibility as well. So for the Foreign Service Officer Generalist career, you just have to be a US citizen, be at least 20 years old, and that's it to apply. You don't technically have to have a degree. Many of us have some sort of degree, yes, but it's not required to apply to be eligible to start your application. For the Consular Fellows Program, very similar. You have to be a US citizen, at least 20 years old, but then also speak one of those 4 languages. And it's to do that consular work I was talking about overseas for a period of about 5 years, which again is 2 countries, 2 assignments. So let's go back to the Foreign Service. So you can choose to be a generalist, Foreign Service generalist, and work on a lot of different things. Or if you really do want to specialize in a certain area, we have Foreign Service specialist careers as well. And here, again, you'll see why I say 99.9% of the time, whatever your major is, we have a career for you because we have about 20 careers listed under here. So I'm going to focus on some that I think might be most relevant for the majors we have in the room. So let's start under administration. We have 4 different diplomatic careers that specialize in different areas of management, business, and administration. So you may recall that when I was just talking about the Foreign Service Officer, one of the 5 areas you can select to focus on is management. And I said that those management officers do HR, operations and logistics management, and financial management. We also have specialist diplomatic careers where you can just focus on one of them. So if you just want to do financial management, you can do that. If you just want to do operations, you can also do that. Or if you just want to do HR, you can do that. And then we also have office management in there too. And it's office management, sort of a traditional administrative role, but it's even more than that. I call it office management plus because especially when you're overseas, you're also doing events and you're also working with protocol issues and kind of a number of other things. So that's why I call it office management plus. It's more than just a traditional administrative role. There are other things involved there. So those are a number of fields where you can specialize if you really want to focus on one aspect of admin or management. And a note too, unlike the Foreign Service Officer Generalist career where you can have any degree or technically you don't even need to have a degree, you just need to be 20 years old. With the specialist roles, because they are specializing, they're each going to have different eligibility. So just as a quick example, let's take the management careers. So if you just want to be doing the financial management, the accounting, the budget, finance piece, then you have to have a bachelor's degree where at least a certain number of hours are in accounting or finance. And you can see kind of the eligibility for the other things. So each Foreign Service specialist career is going to require something different for eligibility. Like for example, if you want to be a security engineering officer, you will have to have an engineering degree. If you want to be a diplomatic technology officer, you have to have an IT related degree. But so another one that I want to mention here is in our law enforcement arm. So people may or may not, probably not, have heard of the Diplomatic Security Service. That's the US Department of State's law enforcement arm. We have our own law enforcement agency. And under this agency, there are 4 different diplomatic careers. The one at the top could be of interest based on some of the majors. You would be a special agent, a diplomatic security special agent, also assigned to embassies and consulates, a diplomat like all the other careers. But what our special agents focus on is a little bit different than a traditional law enforcement role. You would be a federal law enforcement officer. You would have a badge, you would carry a gun, but the work that you do is quite different than like a beat cop or one of the other agencies. So what would you do as a special agent? So they have 3 aspects of their portfolio. The first one is criminal investigations. So they do criminal investigations into visa and passport fraud. Unfortunately, those types of fraud are typically then connected to human trafficking, drug trafficking, other global criminal issues. They also do VIP protection. So just like the Secret Service protects the president and the vice president, diplomatic security special agents will do protection for the Secretary of State, who's our boss, head of the US Department of State. But they also do protection for other foreign dignitaries, including some that might seem a little strange, like the Dalai Lama or the British royal family and kind of different folks from other countries like that. And then the third part of their portfolio is managing millions of dollars worth of security programs that keep our classified information safe, they keep our facilities safe, and they keep our people safe. So it's a very different kind of law enforcement career, but also very critical to the work that we do. So I touched a little bit more on some of the specialist careers that I think could be of interest here. But I can also touch on any of the other ones if there are questions or go into more depth. So that's sort of the overview real quick of the types of careers that we have. And then I do want to go ahead and start talking about our student programs next. Although first, do we have any student vets in the room? Okay, so then I'll say a quick word here. We do have veterans preference for all of our careers, both civil service and foreign service. We do hire, there's no conflict if you're in the National Guard or a reservist. You just take your military leave to go and do your drill points and then come back when you're done. And then how many years were you in the military?
4.
Okay, which branch?
Navy.
Okay, so then potentially of interest is we have a buyback program. So basically if you did anything less than 20 in the military, so not eligible for a military full military pension, then you can buy back that 4 years and add it to your time in service at the State Department to go towards your 20 years you would need for retirement with the State Department. And it's just like a super small percentage of whatever your salary was at the time that you were in. So that's another program that's often of interest to our veterans. But I can go more into other programs too if there are questions. So let's next talk about our student programs. There are a ton, as you can see here. I won't go into all of them. I'm going to focus on the ones that I think will be most relevant for folks. And here again, especially feel free to take pictures. And I do have a flyer up here. One is on the internships and the study abroad programs, and then another one is on the fellowships. Let me start with the internships, since for sure a lot of people were interested in that. I'm going to focus primarily on the first 2 internships because those are our biggest programs, and then also both of those programs are open to both undergrads and grad students. So let's start with the student internship program. This is our largest paid in-person internship program. So what is the opportunity? It is full-time, in-person, and semester long. So when I say full-time, it's 40 hours a week. That's your job that semester, is to come and intern with us and work for us. So you're not also taking classes at the same time, but it is eligible for course credit. So most universities, and I know ASU has done this because they have had students participate in this before, but they will give you some sort of academic credit. So you're still building credit towards graduation, even though you're not taking a full class or full course load. So it's full-time for the semester that you're with us. It's also in person. The majority of these placements are going to be in Washington, D.C., in one of the many offices that we have working on a ton of different foreign policy issues. And then it's semester long. We offer it for 3 semesters every single year. So you can intern with us in the spring, in the summer, or the fall. You can apply to any semester that works best for you. So what is the eligibility here? For all of our paid internships, you're going to have a minimum cumulative GPA of 3.2. And then for this particular program, you would need to be a junior or above, so a junior, senior, or graduate student at the time of the internship. So you can apply as a sophomore, so long as by the time of the semester in which you want to intern with us, you will have finished your sophomore year and you'll be considered a junior credits-wise. So junior or above at the time of the internship. And then how is it paid? So I have the little highlighted part there because it was unpaid for the majority of this program's existence. But then we were able to turn it into a paid program, hopefully making it more accessible to folks. So how is it going to be paid? Of course, an hourly wage, as all paid internships are. But what I think is even better than that, we are going to cover your flight to Washington, DC, and we're going to provide you housing in Washington, DC. I lived in DC for 5 years before I moved up to Vegas. It is expensive. It is not cheap. So I think those are fantastic benefits as well. So with us covering the flight and the housing, and then you having the hourly wage, the idea here is that you're not out of pocket for anything. The hourly wage will then cover food or whatever other expenses you might have in DC. Now, because this is in person, for any of the internships which are in person, you're going to be accessing our facilities, right? You're going to access our email systems. You'll have an @state.gov email like I do. You may be seeing where I'm going with this. As a federal government agency, you're going to need a security clearance. Of course, you need a bigger, higher level clearance for all of the careers, but even to intern with us and to enter our facilities, you will need a minimum level of an intern clearance. So how does this affect the application timeline? How many folks have started to look into federal government or maybe even state or local government internships or employment? Okay, so the security clearance thing is probably not a surprise. It's probably also not a surprise that doesn't happen overnight, right? That's going to take several months. So we factor that into the application timeline. So we open this program about 8-9-ish months ahead of time so that there's time for us to collect all the applications, select the students, and then still so those students have several more months to get the clearance because you cannot start the internship without it. Yes.
What is security clearance?
It's a security clearance to make sure that you can be trusted to enter our facilities, that there's nothing untoward in your background that would be a security concern. It's kind of high level issues. It's not.
It's like a background check.
Yes, that's yes.
Yeah,
So that's maybe what other organizations call it. It's just to make sure we can trust you with access to our facilities and information. Maybe that's the easiest way to say it. But it takes some time because they're going to look into you and your background and people you know and where you've been and things like that. So since the clearance is required, let's look at how this affects this program's timeline in particular. So even to intern with us to apply for next spring semester, this next semester coming up, that opened and closed last July. And even to intern for next summer, that just opened and closed last month in October. So the next time this will open will be to intern with us for the fall 2025 semester, and it should open around February, March. It's only open for 7 days, as you can see from the summer 2025 dates. And even I, as a recruiter, never know till about a week or two before what the dates are going to be. So after I talk about the student programs, I'm going to show a QR code where you can sign up to get information about any of the things that I'm talking about today. But especially if you are interested in the internships, I highly recommend you sign up. You just list any of the internships, and then that should mean that you will get an email whenever any of them open up next. Because I probably won't even know until a week or two before when fall 2025 will open up. Yes.
How long does it take to hear back after you've applied?
It will be probably 1 to 2 months because then we set up selection committees to review all the applications and then we notify the people if they've been selected. And actually for this one, we will select both primaries and alternates. Why do we do that? Because inevitably for some primaries, they drop out, maybe something happened with their coursework or they just can't go anymore. And so then it happens, and I've seen it happen in many cases with some Southwest students too, that they were alternates perhaps for this, but then they get moved up to primary because a couple people dropped out. And so if you apply and you are selected, well, as a primary, you'll definitely go through the security clearance process. But if you're selected as an alternate, they will also ask that you go through the security clearance process so that when and it's a matter of when, not if, when some primaries do drop out, then you already have the clearance and you can be ready to step in and take on the opportunity if it still works for you and you still want it. So if you do apply, even if you do get an alternate, do not despair. I see it all the time that alternates get moved up to primary. So I would say do the security clearance so you can be ready if you want to take that on. So fall 2025 will be the next time that one could apply for this. The other large internship program that we have is the virtual internship program. And this is also for both undergrads and grad students. This is our only unpaid internship, but it's also our most flexible internship. So I do like to mention it because sometimes we can't just pick up and go to DC for a semester. Maybe we have full-time work, part-time work, other responsibilities, or we just are looking for something that's more flexible, something that's a little bit of a lower level commitment. but where you can still get experience, still put something on the resume, still see if this could be for you down the line. So it's unpaid, but what are all the flexibilities? Obviously, number one, it's virtual. You can do it from wherever you are. But also, if you look under eligibility, there's no minimum GPA required for this one, and you can be any year in school to apply. So from a freshman to a PhD candidate and everything in between. Also, this is eligible for course credit as the previous one is. And since it's virtual, no security clearance is needed. You don't even have to go through that process. It's the whole academic year, so both the fall and the spring, but it's only part-time. So it's a maximum of 10 hours a week, and you do that 10 hours whenever you have time, whether that's the weekend, the evenings, during the day, in between classes. So super flexible in that sense. This is going to open up for application in February, and that's going to be to intern with us through this program for next academic year. So this academic year, we've already made the selections. February will open for next academic year. And another thing that I like about this is it's project-based. So the other one that's in person, that's paid, that I was just talking about, you're going to be assigned to an office at our headquarters in DC, and you'll help that office with their work. With this one, it works differently. So come February 1st, when this opens for application at that /17 website, you're going to see all of the projects where we need virtual intern assistance. And there are projects on everything. So whatever your major is, I guarantee you will find at least several projects that will be of interest to you. And you apply to your top 5. And in getting to see the project description, you already know exactly what it is you would be working on if you do win that internship. Because I think a lot of times with internships, we're wondering what exactly are they going to have me doing when I get there, and am I going to like it? So with this one, you don't have that worry because the project description will tell you exactly what you're getting yourself into. Was there a question?
You answered it.
Okay, fantastic. So this will open for application in February. This is also the easiest application of all of our internship applications. It's one simple, relatively short statement of interest. You give a couple names of people who could be a reference, and then you upload your resume, and that's it basically. So that's our other biggest internship program. So the first one that I mentioned and this one are both undergrads and grads. The next two I'm going to say a few words about are only for undergrads, but we have a lot of you here, so including some freshmen who might be eligible for these things next year or year after. So I'll go ahead and mention them. So the first one, only for undergrads, is our U.S. Foreign Service Internship Program. This is a little bit more of a deep dive, and I say that for 2 reasons. The first is that it's 2 consecutive summer paid internships with us, where the first summer internship is in Washington, D.C. at our headquarters, but the second one is at a U.S. embassy or consulate. So you are getting exposed to both sides of the work that we do. You get to be overseas for a summer, which is also nice. Because of that, because it's 2 consecutive summer internships, this is only open to undergrads. You have to be a sophomore or junior at the time of application so that you can finish those 2 internships by the time you would graduate. So you can see the dates that it was open this year. It opened in August to start in summer 2025. Again, only open for about 7 days there. For this one, it's paid, so you have to have a 3.2 GPA. And then next August, 2025, when it opens, if you have a 3.2 and you are a sophomore or a junior next August, then you would be eligible to apply. It's a deep dive also for a second reason. There is a strong professional development component here. You get assigned a mentor, but then also in between those 2 summers, you're taking what's called the Foreign Service Officer Test. This is the written exam that's the first step to becoming what I am as a Foreign Service Officer. So this is great because you're already getting exposed to the application process, demystifying it a little bit. And in the best case scenario, maybe you move forward in the application process. Maybe you get invited to the interview and then maybe you've got a job ready when you graduate. But even if you don't pass and move on to the interview, you've taken it, right? You know what it is. And if you want to pursue it later on, you know exactly how to better study and prepare and practice. So that's another nice aspect of this program. And again, only for undergrads, 3.2, sophomore or junior at time of application. And then another program we have that's also only for undergrads, and here there's an element of financial need. That will be one thing that you'll have to discuss in your application. This is the Wrangle Summer Enrichment Program. It's actually not an internship at all. It is a summer experience in Washington, D.C. And I like to call it kind of an IR boot camp because you're going to learn about international affairs issues, current international affairs issues. You're going to learn about careers in this space as well. So every summer they have different speakers. Of course, you're always going to hear from the U.S. Department of State, but maybe they bring in Peace Corps or USAID or CIA or DOD or whoever to also come and speak to students. And then there's also going to be some presentations on different grad school programs in international affairs and fellowships and scholarships that help pay for those grad school programs, including the ones that we have. So that's why I kind of call it an international affairs boot camp. And this is all expenses paid too, your flight to DC, the housing in DC, the tuition for the different programs, and then a living stipend to cover your expenses. Because this is paid, the 3.2 GPA is required, and you have to be a sophomore or above at the time of application. And this is open right now for application. And this is one that is not open and closing in 7 days. So that's good. You actually have a couple of months to prepare your application. So this just opened last week and will close on February 5th. Now, let me say a word about study abroad, and then I'll come back and say a final word on fellowships, and then we'll show you the QR code and can also answer any further questions. So let's go ahead to study abroad. There are 4 programs on here. I'm going to focus really on 3. The boring one I just throw up on here, it's actually a Department of Defense study abroad scholarship, but a lot of the boring scholars and fellows go on to join the U.S. Department of State, so I give them a little bit of free advertising. I'll pause on the slide there if you want to take a picture, but I'll focus on ours, which are the Gilman, the Critical Language Scholarship, and the Fulbright. So let's start with the Gilman. The Gilman Scholarship is a study abroad scholarship only for undergrads. Now, for all of the study abroad scholarships, there is no minimum GPA required. So that's not a concern here. So for the Gilman, it's just for undergrads. And you also have to be receiving Title IV federal financial aid, which means Pell Grants, basically. So if you're an undergrad student receiving Pell Grants, then you would be eligible for this. And it's up to $5,000 to do a study abroad or an internship abroad, can buy either. There's also a subversion of the Gilman called the Gilman McCain. Same thing, you have to be undergrad student receiving Pell Grants, but as the name suggests, you would need to also be the spouse or child of an active duty service member. And so if that's your situation, then you could apply to both and see how it all shakes out. Now for both of them, they have 2 kind of rolling deadlines, one in October and one in March. The deadline that you would need to meet depends on when you want to do the study abroad. So you would just go online and see which deadline would be the one you would need to apply by. And for all the study abroad scholarships, they're not on careers.state.gov, but they are on studyabroad.state.gov. So you can find more about them there. Then there's the critical language scholarship. And so this is why I was asking the question too about foreign languages in the room. If you are interested in studying a foreign language, either for the first time or deepening your existing foreign language skills, then this could be a good program for you. So the critical language scholarship has an in-person version and a virtual version. This in-person version at the top is for both undergrads and grad students. And it is a summer immersion studying one of about 12, it changes a little bit each year, but basically one of about 12 languages that we call critical for national security purposes. So you're mostly not going to see Romance languages up here. There's one, you'll see Portuguese is up here, but we're talking Russian, Arabic, Chinese, things like that. Now for about half or so of them, you don't need to have any previous exposure to the language. But for a couple, you'll see either 1 year is required, or for one language, 2 years of prior experience with the language is required. This will always open around late September, early October. It's open right now for application. Again, undergrads or grads, no minimum GPA required. And the deadline is November 19th. So still plenty of time to put together something. Now, if maybe you don't have some prior exposure to some of those languages, but you're still interested, or you can't go and do a summer immersion, then you may want to consider the CLS Spark program. This is the virtual version of that program that we created during the pandemic, and we kept it because students seemed to like it. There seemed to be a need for it, so we kept it. The virtual version, though, is only open for undergrads, and it's to do a summer virtual language learning in Arabic, Chinese, Japanese, Korean, or Russian, and no prior exposure is needed for this program. So if you're an undergrad with no prior exposure and you want to do the summer program virtually, then that could be for you. And if you do the summer program and then later go on to apply to the in-person one in that language, then you're automatically moved ahead at the semifinalist level for consideration for the in-person program. So you already get moved to sort of near the top of the applications. I'll just pause here briefly if anyone wants to take a picture of the Boren Awards. This is that Department of Defense one. There's a version for undergrads called the scholarship, and there's a version for grad students called the fellowship. And this is for more long-term language study abroad. And you can actually see in the award that they will give you more money the longer you stay overseas to study the language. And these are also typically more critical languages. So that's another opportunity. And then finally, we have the Fulbright. So Fulbright is a pretty well-known program. There are tons of Fulbright programs. There are Fulbright programs for foreign nationals to come here, for Americans to go overseas. The one I focus on here with college students is the US student program. This is going to be a grant to teach English overseas, to study abroad, or to do research overseas. And no GPA is required, but you do have to be either a senior or already have a bachelor's degree in order to be eligible. Now, you'll see the application period that we have, but this is the only program for which you need your university nomination in order to be considered. So while our deadline is October, each university has to create a selection committee and review all the ASU students who are applying and then decide who they're putting forward for the national slate for consideration. So each university's deadline may be well in advance of that October deadline. And I think it's your ONSA, Office of National Scholarships Advisement that does the advising for Fulbright and actually can do advising for some of the other programs that I mentioned as well. So next, let me say a couple of words about fellowships, and then I'll show you the QR code and show you a couple things on the website. So the last set of student programs that we have are fellowship programs. I'm going to focus on the first four that you see there, the Pickering, the Wrangell, the IT, and the Clark Fellowship. Actually, we don't have any IT majors, so I may not mention that one at all. So I'll focus on the Pickering, the Wrangell, and the Diplomatic Security one. So these fellowships are all career pipeline foreign service fellowships. What does that mean? It means we're going to pay for your education and you have a guaranteed job as a diplomat when you graduate. So since we are giving you that money for your education, you do have to have some level of demonstrated financial need for the degree. You'll have to attach your FAFSA, for example, and then one of the 2 essays that you have to do for these is on what the financial situation is. Basically, why would you need this money? So if you don't need the money for grad school, that's fantastic. Go to grad school and just apply to whatever career you're interested in. But if you do have financial need for grad school, then this could be another option. So first I'll talk about how they're all the same, those fellowships, and then where they differ. So for the Pickering, the Wrangell, the IT, and the Diplomatic Security one, where they're all the same. First thing is we're going to pay for 2 years of your education. Now, when I say pay for, that's tuition assistance, but also a living stipend that can go towards room and board, books, mandatory fees, other expenses. So tuition assistance and living stipend for 2 years of your education. In most cases, that means a 2-year master's degree. We are also going to give you, as part of all of them, 2 consecutive paid summer internships with us, kind of like that other internship program I was talking about before, where the first internship is in DC and the second is overseas at the US Embassy or Consulate. There's a lot of professional development experience here because you're going to be a diplomat when you graduate, and we want to make sure you're ready for that. So you have the internships, you also get pairing with a mentor, you have some networking opportunities, other things like that. And then when you graduate, you're going to join the Foreign Service. Now, where they differ is which Foreign Service career you would join as, and then what type of master's degree you would need to be pursuing. So let me go into that next. So let's start with the first 2, our oldest fellowship programs. That's the Pickering and the Wrangell. And I have one flyer here it says Career Gateway Programs. That's where the fellowships are listed. So the Pickering and the Wrangell are going to pay for a 2-year master's degree. Technically, it has to be relevant to the Foreign Service, but as you heard me say earlier, with all the different things and issues that we're working on, that's almost anything. So a 2-year master's degree in almost anything. And then the career you join as is as a Foreign Service Officer Generalist, the career that I am. So that generalist diplomat that works on a lot of different issues, but you choose consular, political, economic, management, or public diplomacy as your focused career track. So these will always open, and I should say, they're basically the exact same program. So I always tell students, if you're interested in one, just apply to both, increase your chances. It's the same application materials for both. So you just change Pickering to Wrangell, Wrangell to Pickering, and you can submit all the same information. They will always open in July and they will always close in September. And you would apply basically your senior year, or if you're a recent grad, then 1 year before you would start the master's. So those who would have applied this year by the September deadline, for example, would be current seniors or others who will start a 2-year master's degree in fall 2025. So you apply the fall, before the fall, then you would start a 2-year master's degree. So that's the Pickering and the Wrangell. There were no IT folks, so I'll skip that. The Diplomatic Security Fellowship, if that special agent career that I was talking about is of interest to you and you also want to go on to get the master's, then this could be of interest for you here. So here we will pay for a 2-year master's degree in a field relevant to diplomatic security. But again, what they do is also so varied and so vast that you can see in the small print, it's a lot of different things that could be. So almost anything for the 2-year master's degree here. And then the career that you join as is that special agent foreign service specialist career that I was talking about earlier. Now, because special agents are federal law enforcement officers, there are 2 other aspects that all U.S. federal law enforcement officers have to have for eligibility that then affect the eligibility for this. So all U.S. federal law enforcement officers, whether it's FBI, DEA, whoever, they all have to join before their 37th birthday unless they're a preference eligible veteran. And then that can be, there's wiggle room there and that can be waived. And they also all have to pass a physical readiness test. So working backwards on the age of, when you would need to start your degree and when you would need to apply, you need to apply before your 32nd birthday for the fellowship, unless you're a preference eligible veteran, and then there's wiggle room. And then you don't have to pass the physical readiness test to get the fellowship. But if you win the fellowship, then you'll take the physical readiness test as a baseline, get the workout program going for your master's degree time. And then once you graduate, you take the test again, and that time you have to pass. You cannot start the career unless you've passed the physical readiness test. So you just have to pass it by the time you graduate. And this is going to open up in February. It has a little bit of a different timeline than the other ones because they give more time for the security clearance here. So when it opens in February, it's actually going to be juniors who would be eligible, or others who would be starting a 2-year master's degree in fall 2026. So juniors or starting a master's degree in fall 2026. So those are our fellowship programs. Let me now take a moment to share that QR code that I was talking about, where especially for the internships, if you want to be notified, then you could list here. Oops, I can get it back in a second. It times me out. One moment. And then happy to take any questions, revisit anything. And also there's just a couple things I'll show you on the website too. Okay, so this is a QR code. And I'll share it in a second to the Zoom as well for future reference for folks. But with this QR code, it'll ask for your name, your email, your state. Obviously, it will be here in Arizona. And then it says something like, do you have a particular interest or do you have something in mind? If you want to just learn about a lot of different things, and you can put no if you're open to getting emails about different opportunities. But if you do have a specific career in mind or a specific internship in mind, then you click yes, and it will let you put up to 3 things. So again, for the internships, I would put student internship program or virtual internship program or whatever it is that you're interested in. And then the next time any of those open up, then you would get an email for that. And again, those are the paid ones anyway, are only open for 7 days. So definitely, if you want to be notified, you would have to be on our list of people who get an email about that. So while you are looking on that, let me share it to the Zoom so that future students watching can also sign. Okay. Nick, does that show on the Zoom for you on your screen that people in the Zoom can see that?
Double check.
How are we doing on time? Okay, no time for questions. If you have any questions on what to select in the drop-down menu, just let me know. Oh, yes, please.
So I'm currently a grad student. I'm committed to a 2-year fellowship program, but I was hoping to do something like after I graduate my master's program. With that note, do you know if the Fulbright is an option for that at all after you complete your master's, or is it?
Yes, I don't know, I think it can be after you complete it, but I would ask ONSA, the Office of National Scholarships Advisement,
Okay.
just to be sure. They're housed in Barrett, but they do scholarship advising for all ASU students because they do the advising for that and can tell you like what the timeline is, what's involved in the application as well, and if you can do it after you graduate. I think so long as you apply while you're still in school, you can, but I'm not 100% positive. So I just asked that. Yes, please.
I have a question. What does someone who would do regional public engagement specialist do?
Yes, so that is one of the Foreign Service Specialist careers. Basically, it's kind of like the public diplomacy career that I do, but they manage certain spaces that we have overseas, typically housed in libraries or universities overseas that are kind of like little American spaces where people can come and learn about the US. And we do different programming, like speaker events and different seminars and conferences at locations like that. So they manage not only like the finances of those and the whole, operations and buildings and management of all those, but they also manage the programs that we would then do from those platforms. So it's kind of a unique position. It's only open every couple of years. Like it just opened for application. I think it closed on October 29th, but it's not even open for application that often, but like every maybe 2-3 years, it opens for application. That's basically what they do.
Is it the same for the regional English language officer?
No, so the English language officers are going to be English language teachers. They will manage and teach our English language program. So you have to have certain certifications for that one. And it'll say, if you go to careers.state.gov and look under foreign service specialist in that career, it'll tell you exactly what the certifications are. When it's like a TESOL or TOEFL or something like that. Nick, were you able to see this works? Okay, then I'll stop sharing there. Fantastic. Okay. Other questions? Yes, please.
I know you said that you take all majors and you like some different diverse ones, but what are the most, I guess, helpful ones or the ones that are the most like?
There are many. Truly, we come from every background, I mean, especially as foreign service officers. I have a foreign service officer colleague who's also a diplomat in residence, but for another state. She's a foreign service officer and does the management career track, and her bachelor's was in chemistry. Like, we have people with all kinds of degrees, people who were former journalists, former lawyers, former military, people who majored in biology and chemical engineering and in everything, and have now become foreign service officers because they want to take whatever background it is they have and now work on the advancement of foreign policy issues. So really, it can be anything. There's nothing that is more helpful. Other questions? Yes, please.
What did you work in specifically, like when you were overseas?
For like, what do you mean? Like, what's a
Like,
typical?
were you in the foreign service?
I am a foreign service officer.
Okay,
Yes.
what like office were you in, like the public diplomacy or?
I do public diplomacy. So
Okay.
of those 5 career tracks that you can do
Yeah.
as a foreign service officer, that's the one that I do.
What do you do specifically? Like, what's your?
It's a lot of different things. So I often get the question, what is a typical day? There really isn't one, which I like because I get bored easily, as I mentioned. So it depends. It depends on the exact career you have. Even if you're a foreign service officer, it depends on which career track you're doing, depends on which country you're serving in, depends on what's going on in the world. But in general, public diplomacy, we are the ones engaging with foreign audiences. So it's on policy issues. I've organized seminars, conferences, I've done media relations, I've done social media property management, I've done our cultural diplomacy, I've organized like a gospel choir concert before, photo exhibit before. I've done management of our exchange programs. We have a number of exchange programs that we manage too. So everything that's involved with messaging to foreign audiences, all basically very similar to like a marketing or communications career, but just a little bit of a different angle, of course. Yeah, so I've done all of those kinds of things in various different assignments and places.
Okay.
Other questions? Yes, I think I saw you first.
Okay, so you mentioned that you are from the superior officer, which what we were talking about. Do you work a lot with the Peace Corps because of that
Not necessarily, because Peace Corps is a different
sector?
entity. So in the countries that welcome Peace Corps volunteers, they will often come to the embassy to kind of do a little meet and greet and connect before they go on to their Peace Corps assignment, but they're not working at US embassies and consulates. They're out in the field. They're often, in fact, very rarely in the capitals. They're like out there. So working with them, no, but we may meet them, when they first arrive in country. Here, yes.
Have you ever done a hardship post?
Yes, so one of the places that I've served in was Afghanistan. And this gives me a chance to talk about maybe a couple things. Maybe some people are wondering about how the assignments process works. I'm gonna talk about that. And then this also gives me a chance to talk about some of the benefits. So let me just make sure I remember to share to the Zoom. Okay, so first let me mention the assignments process, and then I'm going to talk about some of the benefits and how this applies for some of the hardship posts like the one that I did. So first, the assignments process. So it's kind of like the military, but also kind of very much not like the military. So in the foreign service, no matter which career you have, if you're a foreign service officer, which is a generalist career, or if you're a foreign service specialist, your first 2 assignments are going to be overseas, except for the special agent one. Your first assignment is domestic. But for the majority of them, your first 2 assignments are overseas. They are also what we call directed, meaning we tell you where to go. But it's not that scary. You get a list of all the places that are possible. You rank them high, medium, and low. You have a conversation with the equivalent of a career counselor to talk about what it is you're wanting to get out of that assignment, whether it's learning a different foreign language or using an existing foreign language you have, or going somewhere where there are good schools for your kids, or going somewhere where your spouse or partner can work and get a job. So whatever it is the considerations are in your mind, you'll have that conversation. And then those career counselors have the big task of trying to match your interests and preferences with the needs of the US Department of State. But I've not known anyone who's ever gotten something way low on their list. Like, admittedly, I applied many years ago, but when I first joined for my first 2 directed assignments, I got my second choice both times. So it's, we tell you where to go, but it's collaborative. You have some say into where you go. After those first 2 directed assignments, you are only putting yourself forward for assignments that you're interested in. So you have much more agency and control over where you go. Now, we always put ourselves forward. It's called bidding is the process. So each time you're going to go on to a next assignment, you have to bid and to put yourself forward. You're going to have to put yourself forward for multiple assignments, right? It's not like you can only say, well, London or Paris, or I'm not going anywhere. Like, that's not how it works. You have to be willing to go to all the different kinds of regions and places where we have embassies and consulates. So typically you'll put yourself forward for maybe anything between 5 to 12 positions each time, but they're only positions that you've identified that you would be interested in. So that's a note on how the assignments process works. And within that, in terms of hardship posts, that will be your choice. So for the really difficult assignments like Iraq, Afghanistan, a couple other places, we will never force you to go to a war zone. That was 100% my choice. In that cycle, there was a particular job in Afghanistan that I really wanted. So I went for that and I got it. And but again, that was my choice. So then that brings me also to some of the benefits. So for folks who are thinking about what are the benefits of federal government employment, but particularly as a diplomat, some of them are significant. So with us, it's never going to be just the base pay for the foreign service careers anyway. There's always going to be more, either more money that you can earn directly in your paycheck, or a ton of benefits that we will pay so you don't have to. So let me start on the benefit side. And these are applicable to both the Foreign Service Officer Generalist career and the Foreign Service Specialist career. So for me personally, the biggest financial benefit has been the bottom of the pyramid under benefits, which is that when you are in the Foreign Service and you are assigned overseas, we provide you your housing and pay for all your utilities except for Wi-Fi for free. So imagine not having to pay rent for mortgage for years and how much money you can save up. So that alone provided great financial stability for me. But then also moving up the pyramid, if you have K through 12 age kids when you're in the Foreign Service, and there are many, I get that question a lot, can I have a family in the Foreign Service? 100%. In fact, I'd say most of us have some version of a family. If you have, when you're serving overseas, K through 12 age kids, we will pay for their private education overseas. So typically we're sending our kids to like the American school, the British school, the IB school, international school, whatever it is. So that's another huge benefit as well. We of course have a student loan repayment program that's pretty common these days. Like I was mentioning, we invest a lot in the education, so we'll teach you whatever foreign language you need to know for wherever you're going, and we'll also teach you other skills related to whichever career you have. You may not be thinking about a pension at retirement yet, but we do have a generous pension program. Private sector companies, that's a thing of the past. They don't do pensions. They'll do 401k, maybe 401k matching. We have that as well. But then we also have a pension program like the military and like other federal government agencies have. And then on the layers of salary, so again, it's never going to be the base pay. At a minimum, you will also get something called locality pay for wherever it is that you're serving. It's based on the how expensive the city is that you're serving in. Cost of living adjustment is kind of similar. But if you look at danger pay and hardship allowance, so each embassy and consulate that we have overseas has kind of a percentage point assigned to it of level of difficulty. So when I was in Australia, it was 0%. Obviously, there's no difficulty living in Australia. But when I was in Afghanistan, it was the highest level of difficulty. So when I was serving in Afghanistan for the year that I was there, oh, I should also say a word about how long the assignments are, but I'll come back to that. So when I was serving in Afghanistan, I was making basically double my salary for the year that I served there. So that was nice, but also a lot of things were going on. We had some terrorist attacks on our compound and on a group of us downtown, an event that we had one time. So there's a lot going on and you earn it, but you can also get additional money for serving in more dangerous places. And there are a lot of places that have like 15% or 25% or whatever, there's a range. And so, you don't have to go to Afghanistan, you can go to somewhere else that maybe is a little bit less danger. And then if you do happen to speak a foreign language, which some of you do, Depending on which languages we're looking for that year, and depending on what level you speak those languages at, then there's also language incentive pay, which you could get. And then especially for our STEM careers, we have some other, like, we have signing bonuses for our engineering and IT careers. And then if you do continuing education, like continuing certifications and things like that, you can also earn a little bit more money. So lots of benefits and lots of ways to earn additional money directly into your paycheck, depending on where you're serving and what your family situation is and which of these things you're taking advantage of. But so how long are assignments? That was the other thing I was going to touch on. So domestic assignments are typically 2 years. Overseas assignments can be anything from 1 to 3 years. Your first 2 directed assignments overseas will be 2 years. Then after that, a stable country will be 3 years. So in Italy, I was there for 3 years. Afghanistan was 1 year, Iraq is 1 year, places like that. And then we have some countries that are 2 years because they're somewhere between Afghanistan and Italy in terms of level of difficulty. So I think Yemen was 2 years for a while. It might be actually 1 year now, but basically 1 to 3 years, but typically 3 years for a stable country. So that answered probably maybe a lot of questions, different questions that people have, but I hope that was helpful. Other questions? Yeah.
So while you're in that placement, like, sorry if this is silly, are there sort of like groups that, like, people, for example, when you were in Afghanistan, were you just like the only woman there, or was it like a
No,
group?
it's,
Like, what does
yeah,
that look
you're
like?
working at an embassy or a consulate. So there's
Okay.
the entire American community there with you and all of the other people who are assigned there. And our mission in Kabul was quite large. So I mean, there were hundreds of people there. And then also there are different agencies there as well. So like in Kabul, we had USAID there. Of course, DOD was there as well. Different countries have different, like some countries have a Department of Homeland Security representative. Some countries have an FBI attaché. Most embassies will have a DOD attaché, like a naval attaché or army attaché, something like that. So there is an American community at the embassy. And then also in a lot of places, there are expats who are kind of living there too. And you just maybe join groups, based on your interest, kind of meet people and make friends and things like that. So you're never just alone. There's always at least the Americans that you work with at the embassy and then potentially other people as well. Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. I think before you, I saw them out of the corner of my eye and then I'll come back here. Yes.
This is something way back in the presentation, but on the English internships and fellowships and stuff like that, is there things that specific that you look for that can make someone stand out in those?
Your essays are going to be the most important thing for any of the student program applications. It's where you can pop off the page and really show who you are as an individual and why you would be different than everybody else who's applied. What's special about you, what you bring to the table, why are you pursuing this opportunity? The application for each of the internships and fellowships is going to be a little different. So it kind of depends, sort of is the answer. But the essays will absolutely always be the most important part of your internship or fellowship application. That's one thing I cannot review is application materials, but I strongly suggest that for any of the internships and fellowships, you get someone else to review your essays to really make sure there's no spelling or grammar mistakes. And I call it the 3 C's, that it's clear, concise, and compelling. Tell us your story, how this fits in with your goals. How is this going to help you personally, professionally, educationally, why you want this opportunity, what you've been doing to prepare, what you think you'll get out of it, all of these good things. But have someone else, at least one other person, take a look to really make sure that you have told your story in the most compelling way.
And so you don't need any like rewards or anything specific that make you awesome. And sorry, I had another question. Are you allowed to apply to multiple, like you get as a freshman or sophomore, you get the Zoom one, the
virtual
the
internship.
virtual one, and then
Yes,
4 years later
absolutely.
you do something else.
And I would encourage that. And the same for the careers. So let me just start with careers because I have that as the closest slide. If you are interested in both the consulate and you're eligible for the consular fellows program and the foreign service officer and maybe even one of the foreign service specialist careers, apply to everything. As long as you're interested in it, you truly would be happy doing it and you're eligible for it, apply to all of them and see how it all shakes out. Same thing for the student programs. Apply to multiple of them. And don't be discouraged, and this is the same for both careers and internships. These things are competitive. I'm not going to say they're not. Don't be discouraged if the first time you apply, it doesn't come through. I can't tell you how many students in my region that I've talked to in these last couple of years that have been doing this role who maybe didn't get whatever X program they applied for, but then they either applied for it again and got it, or they applied for a different program and got it. Like I have actually a virtual intern who worked for me 2 years ago. She applied for the critical language scholarship and didn't get it, but then she applied a year later to the Fulbright and she got it. So don't be discouraged if there's an initial rejection. Keep applying and apply for all the things again that you're interested in and that you're eligible for. And then I think I saw you, and then we'll go here.
I was gonna ask, if you're in like one of like the more dangerous countries and like say like you got like injured or something due to something that happened there, how would that be like handled?
Depends on the injury is kind of the answer to that too. In some places, we will have, so you may remember that for the Foreign Service Specialist careers, we hire some folks in the medical field, like doctors, psychiatrists, lab techs, nurses, things like this. So in some bigger posts, like more kind of central locations, we will have medical staff who are diplomats who are there, who may be able to assist. But depending on the level of the severity of the injury, if the local healthcare system can address it, you will go there. If you need to be sent somewhere else because the local healthcare system is not staffed or knowledgeable about that, then they will send you somewhere else to get treatment or whatever it is that had happened. So it depends is kind of the answer to that. What is the injury? How severe is it? Can the local city's health system where you are address it or not?
I was gonna ask if there was any graduate degree path if you're already in a program, because I know a lot of them was saying.
Yeah, you would have
like,
to be,
You would
unless you want to do a
apply
second
to
master's
get-
degree.
Probably
But probably not. I would say then just apply for the career. Yeah, because at this stage too, especially with your military background, I'm sure you have both the education and the professional experience already. And actually, that gives me an opportunity to talk about another thing that's important. So for all of the foreign service, it's actually back one. For all of the foreign service careers, both the foreign service officer, generalist career, and the specialist careers, I get questions a lot like, Antoinette, how do I make myself stand out? What should I be doing? What are y'all looking for? This is literally what we're looking for. If you go on our website, under careers.state.gov, under foreign service, you're gonna see a link that says dimensions. These are the 11 dimensions, and there will be a description of what we mean by all of these things. There will be a list of 11 dimensions that through various studies and things we have determined make a successful diplomat. And so in the application process for all of the foreign service careers, this is literally what we're looking for and what we are assessing you on. So then I always tell people, if they're thinking about applying soon or down the line, what do I do in the meantime? Start or continue building experience with these dimensions. So think about times when I'm surely in the military leadership and other things were present, right? And there are many ways that we can build leadership skills and teamwork skills and other things. So be thinking about examples of how you've already demonstrated these skills so that you can talk about it in the application process. But also, if you're not yet ready to apply, but maybe soon enough down the line, be looking for opportunities where you can build these skills. I'm not gonna say you have to do a foreign policy internship and you have to do a study abroad, you don't, but do something, whatever it is that interests you. It could be a study abroad, it could be an internship, it could be extracurriculars, it could be community volunteer experience, it could be part of your part-time work, full-time work, whatever you're already doing, part of your coursework. Do something to be building experience, build the resume. So when it comes time to apply, you have plenty of things, plenty of experiences to talk about during the application process. Does that answer your question? Kind of, sort of. Other questions? All right, while there's a brief pause, I'm gonna come back to you in just a second. I did want to show just a few things on the website. Okay, I don't know if it's gonna, it's not covering, it's covering the tab too. Okay, one second, let me just remember to share this to the Zoom. Okay, this is our careers.state.gov website. So maximize it, there we go. Underneath this logo on the left, there's another tab called Career Paths. That's where you'll see the dimensions, where you'll see the Foreign Service Officer career and the application process, as well as the Foreign Service Specialist careers. Under internships and fellowships, those same 4 fellowships I was talking about are here. Our biggest internship programs are here. But if you go to Connect with a Diplomat and click on Southwest, it's me. So I am legitimate. I'm actually on a US Department of State website. I am an actual diplomat. And if you go to under my photo and click on email, that goes directly to that DIR southwest@state.gov email I was showing you earlier. I answer every single email that I receive. So if I have not answered you, it means I did not receive your email. Sometimes with the firewalls, that happens. It's pretty rare, but sometimes it happens. And then also, if you click on the LinkedIn tab, stop sharing here. This is what, gonna make me log in. Well, I'm not gonna do it. I'm gonna protest. So anyways, actually, let me see if I can try. Google's gonna try to force me to do it. Trying to see which one do I think it's this one. Bastards. Okay, anyways, if you click on this LinkedIn, oh, there we go. I hovered over it. That's the page right there. The handle is dir-southwest. But that's where I post in real time pretty much every single day. When a job opens, when an internship opens, when we're doing an info session on something, which we're doing all the time. So if you want to follow me there to get kind of the more real-time notifications, then you can do that as well. So there's just a couple of things I wanted to point out on the website, but careers.state.gov for all the careers, you can go there, and all the internships and fellowships, you can go there. Any other questions? I do also, oh yes, sorry, one more second, I almost forgot. So I do also have some brochures up here on the Foreign Service Officer career, the Foreign Service Specialist career, the Consular Fellows program, I just have a couple of those, and then the internships and the fellowships as well, depending on what you were interested in.
So in regards to the Foreign Service Officer test,
Yes.
to, have an actual clear, like,
Yes.
how do you recommend preparing for that? How would you describe the exam, its difficulty?
The first, if you are really thinking about the Foreign Service Officer career, it's not showing me the tab, but let me see if I can get there.
There's so many
Handle.
mixed things online that it's like.
And some people are trying to charge for like advice. You don't know. First of all, none of those people are sanctioned by us, and you don't need it. There are plenty of resources on our site. I just have to figure out like a back way to get there because it's not showing me the tab. So if you go to career under the logo in a normal laptop, you would see career paths as a tab, and under career paths, you'll see now all these things here. Like the dimensions are right here. Those are those 11 dimensions with all the descriptions. But if you go to Foreign Service Officer, there's a tab called FSO Selection Process. If you are serious and planning to apply to become a Foreign Service Officer, literally my advice is to read every single word on this page. Because not only is it going to talk about the process, so you'll see here, what are the different steps, but the even better information is towards the bottom in the smaller print, starting right here, step 1. Here you're going to have, for example, undertake the FSOT, you have a link to a practice test. And actually that's, I would say, start by reading every word on this page. And then also start by taking this practice test, because then you can see how you did on it. And that will give you the best sense of, well, where do I need to study more? And how long do I think it's going to take me to prepare for that? Because the Foreign Service Officer test is offered 3 times a year, every February, June, and October. And you want to apply when you're ready to put your best foot forward, when you have had time to study, and you're ready to go. A note on that too, for all foreign service careers, because a security clearance is going to be required and that doesn't happen overnight, I always tell people start the application process at least 1 year, if not 1.5 years out from when you actually want to be employed. Because it's not that the whole application process takes that long. From the written exam, the Foreign Service Officer test, to the interview may only be a couple of months. But then if you get a conditional offer, it's conditional because then you do the security clearance, and then you also have to do a minimum medical qualifications review. Security clearance for some people could take 7 months, it could take 1 year. I've known some people took 1.5 years or a little bit more. Everyone's lived a different life, so I can't tell you how long that will take for you. And even the fact that it's taking a longer time isn't necessarily a bad thing. Some people have just traveled extensively, or they have a lot of foreign national contacts. That's fine. We want people who have an interest in the world, but they're going to have to look into all those things, so it may just take longer. So I would say start by reading everything on this tab, take the practice test, and then see from there, okay, where do I need to focus my studying to do better? And then that will kind of guide you in terms of preparation. But here, there's so much great information. When you go to register for the Foreign Service Officer test, it's not just saying, okay, I'm going to take the test on this date. You also have to submit your resume information. And you also have to submit something called the personal narratives, which are 6 short essays related back to those dimensions. So this is why I also say read this, because right here you can see exactly what those prompts are going to be, what the topics are going to be for the essays. So read everything on this page, take the practice test, and then from there see, okay, where do I need to go from here to improve my studying and to make sure that I'm just educating myself as much as possible before the big day. Other questions? Okay, well, we've gone just over the hour, so I want to be mindful, folks. Thank you everyone for just staying with me. So there are brochures here. I'm gonna hang out here for maybe another 5-10 minutes if anyone wants to approach me with a question. Let me one more time show the slide that has my email on it, in case folks didn't get a chance to see it before. So if you do want to reach out to me, it's dirsouthwest@state.gov, and then that's the LinkedIn handle. If you have any questions afterwards. Hope some of this, was interesting and things you'd want to apply for, but whatever you all decide to do, I wish you the very best, very best. Thank you for spending your pre-dinner time with me, and yeah, thanks for coming, appreciate it. I'm sorry, one second, let me just stop the recording.